What's up, everybody? New edition of Celtics Beat here on a Friday. Celtics continue to win. That is all good. A lot of deep diving into stats that we will be doing. Evan Valenti, Seth Landman is here. Good to see him. I am Adam Kaufman. I had promised on Twitter, guys, that this was going to be a very special episode because we were going to have a first-time guest on the program. Clearly, if you are watching or listening, this isn't that. That being said, I do think this is going to be a good one, and the very special guest that was promised will be with us within the next couple of weeks. It's just not this time around. But Landman, I don't want that to make you feel less than, because I still love you.
A little less special.
Yeah, I was going to say, Kaufman, you're really doing a terrible job then.
I was just saying to you guys before we came on too, it's just to really make the listeners feel like they've come for a good show. It's remarkable the lack of effort I put in when I know that you're coming on the show, because I know that you are going to carry us. You are going to just present us with all the analytics, all the numbers, all the things that will make everybody feel good, that I really just have to be traffic cop.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I like to get a little spiritual with it too, I think, like we'll talk about ball movement.
Yeah.
The last time Landman was on, we talked about this last week, Kaufman. I don't have any scotch this time around, unfortunately.
Was the last time you were on? You were on in the summer.
Well, wait, I wanted to bring this up. So I talked to Evan without you, and it was like right before the finals.
Oh,
right before the finals.
I thought you meant through text or something. Yeah.
No, on this podcast.
Yeah.
And
we were talking about that with Abby Chin just a couple weeks ago.
So
last week,
I was thinking about
time flies. All right.
I was thinking about I don't know if it's okay to if you want to start here, but I was thinking about how one of the things we talked about is that, like, win or lose in the finals, I thought it was great that they were going to play against the Warriors. I thought that could be a real learning experience. And I would say that Tatum is showing in the early stages of this year that he learned a lot from that Warriors series.
Well, go on.
Well, I mean, so like he's getting off. So I want to talk about how he's like getting off the ball earlier this year. So it comes up in a bunch of different ways. One of the weird things about this season is that he's like his percentage on like step back threes is actually not as good as it usually is, but he's doing all these other things. Like he's getting so many more catch and shoot threes. And I was looking up, he's just like, in terms of the last few seasons, he's blowing away the number of, like, so many more of his baskets are assisted, even though he's averaging more points. Like, he's getting it in the flow of the offense. It's up to, like, the last 3 years, he's been around like 41, 47% of his baskets are assisted. This year, it's up at like 59%, which is just a huge jump. And normally for star players, that percentage goes down as they take over more of the offense. Like, they generate more of their own points and fewer of their baskets are assisted. And I think the fact that he's like getting rid of the ball early and letting it come back to him means he's getting so much easier looks and like so much easier driving lanes. And I think, I don't, like, you play against Steph Curry in the finals, and he kicks your ass for 6 games. And it's like, you learn that you need to get off the ball, I think.
So a lot of the things that we've been talking about on the show in recent weeks, and how strong he's come out of the gate, or just the team in general, we've sort of fixated on. I've really harped on the fact that I think there's a valuable learning experience in losing in the finals versus losing in the conference finals. You lose in the conference finals, and you've gone on a deep playoff run. You're one of the final 4. Like, that's all well and good, but you lose and you kind of chalk it, and you're like, oh, we're not there yet. You get to the finals and you lose, and you've reached the top of the mountain. As the analogy I think I've used is, you've reached the top of the mountain. You're not the one that gets to plant the flag, right? Like, you're the one, like, you got there, you tasted it. Now you know what it takes. But you're saying, and I just want you to expand upon it a little bit, that it's not just losing in the finals, it's losing in the finals specifically to the Warriors that you can learn a lot from.
Right. Like, if you imagine a version of last season where the Celtics lose instead of the Warriors to the other Western Conference finalist team, the Mavericks, what would you learn from losing a series to Luka? You would learn that, like, that an individual player is so unguardable that there's just nothing you can do, right? Like, that one person is controlling the whole offense and sort of like willing his team to victory through sheer force of will. and it's just not the way Steph Curry plays. Like Steph Curry this year is already like, um, I mean, the Warriors are struggling, but he's been almost better than he's ever been, and more and more, it just his what he's able to do off the ball. I think he learned really early on, maybe like even during his college career at Davidson, where he had defenses just completely focused on him, was that it's much easier if you get rid of it and then move without it and get it back. Um, and if you think about some of the things, like the other thing that was good about playing the Warriors, I think, is they're such a smart defensive team, and we spent the whole finals being so frustrated about Tatum and Brown losing the ball on drives.
Mm.
And that's what happens when you drive into a set defense. But when you drive into a defense that's been shifted because the ball is moving via the pass, you're much less likely to turn it over. I mean, the other thing we're noticing early this year is that, what are they, like first in the league in turnover rate on offense?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a huge piece of why they've been so good offensively. So I think all that stuff just, I mean, the Warriors just play a little differently than most teams. I think most teams get a superstar and then that superstar controls everything. Um, and the Warriors don't really do it that way. Like Steph is just like one of the best I've ever seen at being willing to like use use his off ball movement to affect things rather than being on the ball.
So
Yeah, I
Evan,
agree
I'm
with a lot of
curious. Well, I'm curious as to your thoughts. Kind of going back to the offseason a little bit, because we're watching this continued evolution of Jason Tatum. Like, he's not even 25. He's not even in his prime yet. Like, we the three of us will text constantly, and I think, Landman, you said something the other day to the effect of, like, we're just so lucky to be able to watch Jason Tatum on our team, right? On the team that we watch on a daily basis, that we support, that we care most about, obviously, and watching him grow into, place him wherever you want. Like, certainly a top 10 player in the NBA. Plenty of people would put him in the top 5. He's, on the way to I don't want to say he's on the way to being number 1, but he's on the way to being in the conversation to being number 1 anyway. And certainly, if anyone said, "Hey, this guy's going to win an MVP at some point," you might balk at that and say, "He's going to win an MVP this year." What he's been doing right now, he's been absolutely incredible. What you were talking about, though, Evan, throughout a lot of the offseason from last year to this year was, like point Tatum. We were talking about point guards and has this offense going to run. And this offense under Joe Mazzulla has been a juggernaut, far and away the best offense in the NBA. And we'll talk more about that as a team. But specific to Tatum, he's scoring well, he's shooting well, he's talked about it multiple times, the best start he's ever gotten to a season. But in terms of, point Tatum, if you will, the assist numbers are actually down a little bit. They're not bad. He's averaging 4.1. Last year it was 4.4. The year before it was 4.3. So he's in line with what he's been doing, but it's not like he's averaging 5. You know what I mean? So are you seeing from him what you expected, or is this different, even if it's different in a good way?
It's a little different than what I expected, to be honest with you. And I think it's for a good reason. I was in the mold of the heliocentric offense of Tatum, kind of at the end of like big playoff games when things, and I still think it's possible this goes this way. I prefer if it didn't. But the way the season ended, it just felt like because Boston didn't have enough manpower to kind of keep up with Golden State, that it felt like every possession just needed to be in Tatum's hands and he just dictates where it goes. The one thing I will say is this team has taken just a ginormous leap collectively, offensively as a unit in terms of ball movement, in terms of off-ball movement. I could not have forecasted this team doing what they're doing right now. And this is a credit to Joe Mazzulla, and I keep apologizing for my take at the beginning of the season when Joe Mazzulla was hired as head coach, and I went really into this is going to be catastrophic for Boston. I couldn't have been more wrong about that. And I'll continue to tell everybody I was wrong about that. I am so impressed with how this team moves as a unit. Seth and I were talking today about in transition. It feels like that Boston pushes more than they ever have. And if you look at the data, it actually suggests that that's maybe not true, but it certainly feels like it. It feels like a more fair opportunity offense. It looks more like, and I'm not trying to say they're Golden State because they're not. There's a whole different level of offense going on there. but it feels more like that than it does the Luka and the Mavs, right? It feels more like a team that everybody touches it, the ball finds the open guy, and it's just more aesthetically pleasing to watch than Luka sit there. And again, I love watching Luka and I love watching Jokic do everything. To have one person do that's amazing, but it's a better, I think, in a more successful model to have what Boston currently has as an offense. I just didn't think they were really capable of it, and we'll see what happens when Rob comes back. But again, everybody in the starting lineup is sharing the basketball extremely well. There's no like your turn, my turn sort of thing between Tatum and Brown. They have found a way to just feel out the game. Along with Missoula, like there was the other night, I think Tatum had 16 points in 5 minutes, and timeout gets called, and the first play that gets run is actually a play for Jaylen Brown, because it's like we haven't gotten Jaylen Brown involved in a long time. Let's get him a touch, and he scored like on one of the easiest twos I think he's had all season. So it's just this team collectively took a giant leap, like all together at the same time. Tatum being a big part of that, but it's definitely not what I expected, and I'm kind of pleasantly okay with being wrong about that. And I'm thrilled that Boston has found a different level because it's more sustainable. The one thing I don't like, and I beat the drum for it throughout the entire offseason. But those teams don't always work, Like I said, look at Harden, look at LeBron, look at Luka. Giannis certainly last season got to that point because it was just him and Drew Holiday at the end of that series, and it had to be Giannis every time. So, like, it does work, but what they're doing now is way better. And I just want to commend everybody for getting on the same page. So it might not be what I expected, but it's definitely more necessary to play this way than not. And again, I'll be wrong about that. I don't mind wearing that at all. This is much, much, much better. I just can't believe what they're doing offensively. Like they were, and again, it's not the per 100 or per 36, but the Boston Celtics scored 120 points with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter and put all their subs in, and they scored 127. Their offensive points per game went up, and it wasn't a great night for Jason Tatum. And Jaylen Brown had, a decent night, but not a great Jaylen night. That's pretty impressive as a team offense when your best player does not shoot the ball well. Your second best player has an okay night, and you end up scoring more points than you're averaging. That's phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Seth, it's probably difficult to answer this question without bias, so I don't expect you to, but maybe not full bias. Is there anyone in the NBA that you would take over Jason Tatum right now on your team? Anybody, straight up, you can make a trade. You can have anyone in the NBA, but you're giving up Jason Tatum. Is there anyone on that list?
Yeah, I'd take Nikola. I mean, like, I'd take Jokic and maybe Giannis. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know. The bias part is like, I'm really heavy into my, like, what brings me joy as a person watching basketball games lately, like almost more than like winning necessarily. And so I just love seeing the ball move. But to Evan's point about, I don't know, I guess when you look at the different superstars around the league, and think about like role and system, I think it's really interesting. There is quite a bit of variety. I mean, it would be tempting to compare Jokic to Luka in some ways, but in other ways, it's like Luka exerts so much control over the offense. Like everything that happens on that Dallas offense when he's on the floor is a choice that he's making. Whereas Jokic, I think, is much more willing to like get off it and cut without it. And like sort of screen for other people. I mean, one of the things that stands out most about Jokic is the 2-man games that he develops, like alongside Murray or more recently with Bones Highland. I don't know. I mean, but to your point, the list of people, it's not like a gimme to take any of those guys over Tatum. And I think the thing Tatum's never gotten quite enough credit for is that he basically showed up in the NBA as a smart team defender. And he's just gotten better in that role. I mean, the fact that he's blocking more shots now with Rob out is huge, especially since, I mean, maybe we'll talk about this later, but Horford like isn't really blocking shots this year. And so, yeah, I think, I mean, you could argue he deserves to get consideration for first team all defense at this point. And so in that way, and you could maybe argue that he's a more impactful offensive player than Giannis in some ways, although Giannis's brute force is maybe something Tatum can't match. But yeah, I mean, like to me, there's no argument that he's not one of the 5 best players in the league, and it's easy to imagine that he could be the most valuable. Yeah.
Well, our boy Michael Pina wrote an article for the Ringer recently and dubbed Tatum the most complete player in the league. He's not the MVP. He gave to Luka, which I don't have a problem with because of Luka's start has been just absolutely insane.
Otherworldly.
And then he hit the shot the other night. Who did they play? The Clippers the other night.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, just it's quick aside in my head, and I think I tweeted it out. I was like, oh, it's good to know that other people get killed by Luka like this, other than just the Celtics, because every time they play each other, Luka hits some absolutely, or gives it up to Dinwiddie, who hits a back-breaking 3 at the same time. So it's like one of those things. But like, it's hard to argue with the most complete player in the league moniker because of the way you can score at all 3 levels
Mhm.
and the way you can impact the game defensively. And there's not too many guys that can do that. I mean, Luka's an all-world offensive player. The defense isn't there, and Giannis can't shoot threes like Tatum can.
I will say, like, to go back to the theme earlier of learning, I mean, Luka, I do think Luka learned a lot in last year's playoffs, like getting embarrassed by Booker and Paul at the beginning of that Sun series. I kind of feel like he's been a way better defender this year. Um, I don't know. It's interesting, like which superstars have that moment where like somebody kicks them in the teeth and they either like learn from it or like settle into their own stuff more than they ever have, kind of
Like,
like
are you Tatum or Embiid at this point?
yeah, or I mean, it's interesting that Embiid and Harden are on the same team, right? It's like those guys seem to like I don't know, like when things get hard, they like veer even further into like what they know works instead of learning something new, maybe. Um, yeah.
Feel that. I don't know. Tatum's game is gone just again because we always talk about the meme, like where in the meme are we? I don't know. Are we making a new meme now? But this Tatum's start has been just unbelievable. And we all thought that he would vault himself into a different stratosphere at some point this season. Didn't think it would be the beginning of the season. And what he told Embiid was like, "You better win MVP this year because you're never going to win it again." Like he might have been right about that because it's something. And my biggest thing with Tatum is how many free throws he's going. He's going to the line a lot more this year, and it's such an easy way to get him going. And maybe it's because he's getting off it and then getting it back and attacking closeouts differently. And like there's so many different ways he can get to the free throw line. But the fact that he's getting there, 9, 10, 11 times a game, like that's a huge part of his development because it was always, when there's that long, that quick with that type of body, like it was just a matter of time. But he's just really put it all together right now. He's finishing through contact sometimes, not all the time, but the fact that he's drawing fouls at a higher rate is just ginormous for his game.
Yeah, 8.7 is the average, which has just been, I mean, that's been the dream. We've been talking about that for years with Tatum. Like, mother of God, get to the line 10 times per game and think about what could be. And I guess, I look at sort of where we're at right now, and again, 15 games in, and we're not even talking about the team just yet, just still with Jason Tatum. This is for longtime listeners of this show anyway, you well know that I have been the most resistant of certainly between Evan and I, but probably compared to most people that even come on the show as guests, to dub him a superstar. It's always been, the budding superstar. He's on the way. He will be. He's not quite there yet. And the hesitation on my part has been the lack of consistency. You'll see him go on this absurd run for, we're not talking days, weeks, like for half a season, the guy will be unstoppable. But then you think back to the first couple months of last season when, he was anything but, he shot about as poorly as he ever has to begin a year and all of that. I really think from last year through the playoffs, even considering all the turnovers, like I'm taking that into consideration through the playoffs into where we are right now. Like he's made the turn. The guy is a superstar, obviously. If you want to say like welcome to the party, that's fine. We're there. Everybody's at the same table now. Jason Tatum is a superstar. But what I'm wondering, Seth, is do you think it's sustainable? And I don't mean consistency necessarily, and I don't mean it, is he gonna all of a sudden I'm gonna say he's not a superstar in 3 weeks. What I mean is, he's averaging 31 points a game. He's shooting damn near 50% from the field. He's, I think the free throw percentage will maintain, he's 87, 88. I actually think the 3-point percentage probably will improve. He's right around 36. But in terms of his overall game, and even I guess just the one number of points per game, like, can he, given the not can he ability wise, but can he, given the supporting cast around him and everyone kind of getting a chance to eat, and Jaylen Brown in particular, can he average 30 points a game? Like, is this an offense that allows for that?
Yeah, definitely. I think the fact that he's doing, like, it's kind of, his season so far is really kind of blowing me away. I mean, I brought up the assisted percentage number. I mean, the fact that he has increased to over 31 a game while like relying on passes from his teammates to feed more of his offense, that seems like an incredibly good sign. It seems like there's a lot of ways that he's scoring that are just intuitively about reading what the defense is doing. And that's the kind of stuff you can't really plan for that because it's not just him like doing one thing over and over again, like banging his head against a wall, and the defense can adjust for that one thing he's doing. Um, I think there's a few reasons he's getting to the line more. I mean, I think I've sort of been obsessed I might have even talked about this on this podcast before, but about like he's always gotten to the line more in the playoffs and then it regresses in the regular season. Like his free throw rates are way higher in the playoffs over the course of his career. So I wonder, getting closer to your like the physical prime or whatever, like is he just like so much stronger now that he can kind of like hold his line a little better, like without having to, in the playoffs you amp yourself up and you have to do it, and it's like it's more important, and maybe in the regular season it's like harder to do that on a regular basis. So I wonder how much just strength has to do with it. But yeah, I think he can absolutely average 30. I mean, he's again, like there's going to be games where he has to go to his like ISO game and his step back stuff more, and I think more of those shots will go in than are right now.
Are you
but
okay with playing 37 minutes a game?
Okay, I've been thinking about this minutes thing a lot because I feel like at the top of the league, individual player minutes are kind of up. I haven't like really looked into the numbers that much yet, but when I checked the other day, there were more guys than last year averaging like over 36 minutes a game. And I'm wondering if like I think we just are always a little bit behind what the teams know about the science of this stuff, and like which minute. I wonder if there's stuff going on about like which minutes are higher leverage than other minutes, and like are there ways that like the people who are doing the data are looking into this where like you can get up to 37, 38 minutes and it's like maybe the same wear and tear that 35 would have been, depending on like which minutes it is. Or and I also think the fact that he's getting off the ball more probably means he's like getting beat up a lot less, even though he's getting to the line more. So I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm not too concerned about the minutes. I feel like with this team, the front office is like pretty aware of that stuff and is probably talking about it. But yeah, I don't
I
know.
also think Jason wants to play all the time. Like,
Yeah.
I just don't think he like doesn't like being on the floor.
I'm always
doesn't make a lot
terrified
of time.
I feel like it's terrifying to talk about this stuff also.
Knock
It's
on
like,
wood.
yeah, I don't like he's been durable. I hate even saying that out loud,
The
but
guy played through COVID.
yeah, he
I
did.
mean, the thing he went on the run with the shortened off season, Team USA came back, played all that. Like, I've been just hoping for a break for him. He finally had a real off season this year
Mhm.
to recharge the batteries, and he comes out and has his best start ever. Like, not kind of a shock to me considering he's had time to really rest. And the one thing I'll say, the wrap on the hand with the wrist tape and then like the guard here, got me a little nervous at first, but he must just as an extra precaution, just in case he gets bumped there, he doesn't want, like, that's fine with me. Do we got to do? But I am monitoring like just all the little nagging stuff that can add up over a course of a season. Like, I'll never forget, there was this great, and I don't remember who they were playing. I remember him being on the Ravens at the time, I believe. There was this great graphic of all the injuries Steve McNair was playing with, and it was like he had like busted cartilage in his rib cage. Like,
I
he
remember
had
this.
like broken fingers, like collarbone, like shoulder, like turf toe. I was like, this guy's a maniac. One of my favorite quarterbacks of all time, Steve McNair. I don't want Tatum to be that guy who's playing through all this nagging stuff. Like, dude, take time off, please. If you like this whole Malcolm situation, right? Brogdon had a couple of games off to heal a nagging hamstring injury. Totally fine. Like everything worked out. They won every game he sat. Maybe some tougher ones in there. You know, that Oklahoma City game was a little interesting, but you know, they managed to win all the games. He gets full rest. Hopefully he's back Friday night against the Pelicans and he's back to the normal self. Like I am so pro everybody take whatever time you need to get back to 100% healthy. Like Rob, just relax. Like don't do anything crazy. Like don't try and push it. They don't need you. Like I am every single player on this team. I just want to like tell them that to their face. Like if you need time, please take time because when they get to April and May, like everybody's got to be healthy because this is beautiful what's happened so far the first 15 games.
I just think it's so interesting how, and it's not surprising, but it's interesting how each guy you look at differently in that respect. Like Jason Tatum, you just expect because of, you know, historical durability and everything, you expect he's going to play 75 plus games. Hell, you expect him to play 80, but if he plays 75 and sits a couple, like, all right, whatever, like we'll see in the playoffs. Malcolm Brogdon, to your point, Evan, if he plays 60, that's a win. Like you're good with that. Like if he plays 60, you know, full meaning healthy, full potential, full caliber games and gives you whatever is asked of him, obviously, and then that trade looks like that much more of a steal. I mean, they gave up basically nothing for him, and the only reason that anyone would have even maybe hesitated a little bit was, can he stay on the floor?
Yeah.
So if he gives you 60 plus games, you know, 60, 65, and right now, like you said, he's sitting out a few for, you know, really because they don't need him. Like it's a nagging injury. It's maintenance. Just get yourself right. It's fine. We just want to see you later. And the fact that they're winning without him makes it all the sweeter because it's not hurting them at all. We don't even know it as we sit here definitively right now if he's going to play in the game tonight in New Orleans. I expect he probably will. I expect that, you know, Marcus Smart probably will. I expect they're going to win the game. None of that really matters. It's a big picture show, so we're not fixated on a game that most people, you know, will have watched by the time they listen to this podcast anyway. And hopefully, you know, if you're out there listening right now, it's a 9-game winning streak and not an 8-game winning streak. But it's just interesting how we identify different guys in different ways. But I want to get to more of the team on the whole. You know, I think what's blown people away, we'll talk about the defense and the fact that it is rising, by the way. They're middle of the pack in terms of defensive efficiency. A couple weeks ago, they were bottom 10 in the league.
Last 10 days, they're 1 in offense, 6 in defense. Thanks to Goldsberry.
You know, small sample sizes. But the number 1 in offense, that has been the case pretty much from the get-go. And the offensive efficiency rating is like 120. It's absurd what is happening right now. And that is without a complete package. Like you've had Brogdon miss a few, you know, pretty much a third of the season at this point. You've had, you know, Smart miss a few games. You've had, you know, Brown has missed one. Horford's missed a couple. Like, you know, it's no devastating injuries or anything like that, you know, knock on wood, obviously, but there's, you know, they've not been a full complete unit day in and day out. There have had, you know, there have been guys that have been out. And first and foremost, Rob Williams, who, as much as we laud his defense, he's a big part of the offense too. He has not played yet so far this season. So is this sustainable? Is 120, 119 offensive rating, first in the league, wire to wire, is that sustainable, what you've seen so far?
Okay, so I got a lot for you here.
Great.
The answer to the question is kind of sustainable. Like, so Cleaning the Glass, for people, if people don't know that site, it's a really great site with NBA stats, and they one of the things they track is so you can look at a team's effective field goal percentage, which is just like a measure of how efficiently they make shots. But you can also look at what you would expect their effective field goal percentage to be based on the location of the shots they're taking. So traditionally, the Celtics have kind of like hovered around league average in terms of like the quality of the location of the shots they're taking. That's gone up this year. They're near the top of the league. So I do think there are, like, even though there's some like hot shooting stuff going on, they're getting the best shots basically of any team in the league. They've kept the amount of shots they're getting at the rim basically the same, and they've replaced a ton of mid-range shots with threes. And beyond that, it's not just like any threes. I was looking up, so last year they were around 36.5% of their threes were were like wide open threes, and now it's like up to 40%. So I think like they're getting like more wide open threes, which so it makes sense that they're making more of them. Like some of that stuff, like they are outperforming what you would expect their field goal percentage to be based on the shots they're getting, but not like they're getting way better shots. So I think that's like a huge piece of it. Um by the way, I think Tatum's like ability to get off the ball is just like a huge part of that, why they're generating more open threes. If you think about like how many of his like off dribble threes that were contested have been replaced with him shooting catch and shoot threes, that's just a huge difference. Um and then the other stuff going on, like, they don't get offensive rebounds, but that's kind of always been the case. Like they're going to prioritize other things over that. But like to go from middle of the pack in turnovers to the top of the league in turnovers, that like makes a huge difference in your offensive efficiency. And I think the ball movement is a big piece of that too. Um, there's like when you look at NBA stats, like some stuff ends up feeling like luck and some stuff feels sustainable. And people have done a bunch of research on this. There's like a really good article from a few years ago on Nylon Calculus about this, um, about like stabilization rates of stats. So like when the question is like, if you're looking at a stat early in the season, how do you know when you can like start to trust that stat? And like people have sort of accepted the fact that like opponent 3-point shooting percentage is this thing that's like mostly luck. That tends to, like, if opponents are making like all their threes or none of their threes, you can basically predict that a team will like it'll start going the other way at some point. But some stuff like mostly stylistic stuff, you can trust it pretty early. And so like the way a team is playing. So the fact that the Celtics are getting to the line more is like a thing that is like immediately sustainable. That's just like stylistically how they're playing. And I think turnovers are kind of like that too. So like they've gone way up in free throw rate and they've gone way up in turnover percentage, or like better in turnover percentage. And so I think that stuff is all really sustainable. The one thing that feels like a red flag is they're making a ton of mid-range shots like compared to last year. I think it like for the last 3 years they've been at like 0.83 points per shot on long twos, and this year they're like 0.9 something. So they're just like making maybe an unsustainable amount of long twos. But even if so, like with the offensive rating, it's like it's at 120 or whatever. Like even if it falls to like 117, they'd be number one in the league.
Mhm.
So they're like they have some like room to um lose a little efficiency and still be the best offense in the league, actually.
It is crazy. Celtics sitting 119.2 as we chat right now. The Kings, who have, their record should be better than it is, but 117.5. And then after that, 115.5 is the best. And then it's, a whole lot of teams are separated by like a point or two. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
but for the Celtics are just, other than Sacramento, are so far in front of everybody. And this is not, I know it's a small sample size relatively, but it's just one of those stats, as you know, and you were just outlining. It's one of those stats where like even percentages of a point are noteworthy, let alone 4 full points between first and third place. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and if you so like there are sites like Dunks and Threes does like they do offensive rating, but they account for strength of schedule. When you look at that stuff, like the Celtics are blowing everybody away by even more. It just gets like more extreme. So yeah, I mean, it like they have a lot of room to play with. They're probably getting a little lucky, but they're probably also the best offense in the league anyway.
Well, it's comes back to like Joe Mazzulla in two different ways. One, schematically, it's just beautiful to watch. Again, and other thing that I think adds to this, it's again it goes back to Joe Mazzulla and just outlining everybody's role. and I've noticed this from Brogdon. He's talked about this, I think, multiple times, how they want to have the best bench in the league. And I think they have the best bench in the league, and I think everybody on the team thinks they have the best bench in the league.
Yeah.
It's not like these guys.
I think they're the deepest team in the league.
Yeah, and
But we
in
said that
a
in
league
the
that's
offseason.
really
Like, the
deep
season
right now,
hadn't
by the way.
started yet, we were saying that.
Yeah, I mean, you look around the league, there's a lot of teams that are really deep, but Boston off the bench. I mean, are there two guards in the league like Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon coming off anybody else's bench? I just want to point out, just real quick, for the people that clown the Derek White trade, and there are people on our own network.
These people exist.
That clown the Derek White trade because he had a bad finals. You're all eating it today. I cannot believe that people even thought about having that opinion. Derek White is such a ginormous luxury for this team. And he's their fourth guard, basically, off the bench if you make Jalen a guard. And if you make Jalen a wing, he's their third guard. And having Peyton Pritchard as your fourth or fifth guard, absolutely ridiculous. This team is so stacked on the bench that Peyton barely plays. And as you've seen, thanks to the Atlanta game, like, he can still play. There would be a role for him on this team if they didn't already have like a bunch of dudes that are just better than him. But to have Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon off the bench is a huge luxury. Sam Hauser is playing a role that they've desperately needed for years.
This is the real question. When do we start talking about Sam Hauser's MVP case?
Biggest plus minus in the league.
Leading the league in off-on differential.
Unbelievable.
I just love that he's shooting 49% from 3-point range, and he's in a rut.
Yeah.
But the again, I think Seth, you pointed this out. I think you were the one that put it in the chat of his form looks just like Larry Bird's, which is just kind of real interesting. The way the shot finish is like at the same, literally the same spot. If you haven't seen the picture, recommend you go and look at that. But this, a lot of, again, schematics is one thing, talent's another thing, and that's when you combine them together, you get the beautiful harmony that Boston has offensively. And it's just guys buying into their roles. I don't think there is no question about what each person's supposed to do in the basketball. Like, look at Grant Williams.
Yeah.
Grant, who has expanded his range from the corner outward. Now he's like much better above the break at 3-point, on the wing or straight up like top of the key. Way more confident, way better
statistically right now.
Yeah.
He's shooting them off the dribble.
I know. That's the crazy part.
And he's not like taking 1 or 2 a game. Like, he's shooting almost 4 a game.
Yeah.
And he's put it on the deck. When guys come out and close out, he can either do the one dribble, sidestep 3, or he can put it on the deck and close out and dunk. Or he'll dish, like, I don't know, everybody, the maturation of the whole team is like just kind of all collectively gone another level up. And everybody at the same time is like, again, at some point, like, this isn't going to go like as well.
Sure, we're doing video right now. Did you guys see me just friggin' jump a mile? Because I think a bird just flew into my window at full speed. Yeah, you talk about
is that currently?
You talk about Larry Bird, and all of a sudden, boom,
Bird smokes and kills itself.
Yeah,
incredible.
What moment are we dealing with here?
Rewind the tape. I literally just jumped. All right, go ahead. Sorry,
but no, it's again. I just think it's a lot of, and again, a lot of credit goes back to Mazzulla, but everybody buying in. Everybody understanding what they're supposed to do on the floor. This bench is insane. And everybody's just collectively hitting every check mark you need to check. Again, the only problem Boston has, again, last time I checked it, I didn't check it today, but the only problem Boston has offensively is their offensive rebound percentage towards the bottom of the league. It's like 24th or 26th, somewhere in there. But Boston, every other offensive metric per Gleaning Glass is a top 4 team offensively, and mostly number 1 in everything. So it's great. It's a great problem to have.
I guess there are things that, and look, maybe the Boston Celtics are just now the Golden State Warriors, right? In terms of stylistically and the way they shoot and all. Like, I know they don't have, Curry and Clay. They don't have like the Splash Brothers per se, but in terms of their depth and the way they use their surrounding pieces, parts, whatever, maybe they've morphed into that team. That is what I guess if there's one thing, I didn't think about this till just now, but I guess if there's one thing that if you were to say, like, projecting ahead another 30, 40 games, what does this look like now? You got to pick one stat that you're wondering about. This is the one that I'm wondering about. Right now, Grant Williams, Sam Hauser, Al Horford, Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, all on at least 2.5 attempts per game, and in some cases up to 4.5, are all shooting at least 40% from 3-point range. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, not in that conversation. They are, they're Brown's at 32.5, Tatum's at 36.5. Marcus Smart, for the people that like to get on him, here's your year. He's shooting 5, per game, and he's shooting not even 30%. But all those other guys, Grant, Hauser, Horford, Pritchard, White, 40+% from 3-point range. I want to know if that holds up. And obviously, like you were talking about, Seth, stylistically, if they continue to get the open looks that they are, it should hold up. Because we're talking
maybe
about guys that can knock down shots. But I'm really curious to see how that goes.
I mean, it won't be 40%, but like if it's 38, I mean, like, if like again, this comes down to like
the team as a whole is shooting 38.7.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that I think that could hold up. What were they at, like 36 last year? It's like if you're getting way more, if a higher percentage of the threes you're getting are open or wide open, your percentage of those threes that go in is going to go up. I do think there's probably some hot shooting, but I also think there's a fringe benefit to like deciding stylistically that you're gonna shoot more threes, and maybe just that's like a result of like focusing on driving closeouts and kicking out more. Like if I don't know, if you just like decide in practice, like, okay, if we're open on a 3, we're gonna shoot it. And at the same time, we're getting smarter about like, okay, I'm Marcus Smart and I'm open. I'm like wide open on the above the break, but Grant Williams is standing in the corner. Like maybe I'm a little like a couple percentage points smarter than I used to be about like throwing the head fake and moving the ball to the corner. Like there's all these like incremental things that are benefits that you get out of playing together for a long time. And so I think there's a bunch of factors coming together. They're better at doing the stuff that they're trying to do. They've made a concerted effort to turn long 2s into 3s. Like they're shooting like fewer mid-range shots than almost anybody and more 3s than almost anybody. And so I think like when you decide to do that, maybe your confidence level in those shots goes up as well. So they're more open, they're like more in the flow of the offense, and you've got more confident shooters taking them. So it makes sense to me that they'd make more of them.
Looking ahead, and we'll get out of here soon, but I'm just kind of, there was the story during the week from Steve Bulpett, good friend of the program, from Heavy Sports, talking to Al Horford about how Horford wants to play another 2 to 3 years beyond this year. He wants to do that in Boston. I think he has probably learned after going to Philly that the grass is not always greener. It's not always about the money. He wants
money was good though.
There's a lot of money in that other grass though.
Yes,
money was good.
It's true. Well, look, the money's still been good in Boston because he's on the same contract.
It's true.
And he wants that championship before he retires. Came damn close last year, and he's certainly in a good position this year. But looking beyond this year, so you got Horford, who's a UFA, Grant is an RFA, and those are your most important decisions to make. Everybody else is on the books to come back in multiple cases for multiple years. But if you're the Celtics, we've had many conversations, the three of us, whether privately over text or on this show, about ownership and spending into the tax and all of that. These are your two guys you're going to have to spend on. Grant, they didn't want to give seemingly in the neighborhood of 14, 15, maybe $16 million a year when they had the opportunity. Apparently, according to the reports, they were only offering like 11, maybe 12. That was kind of the gap between the two. He's gone out. He's had a great start to this year. Somebody is going to make him an offer. The Celtics have the ability to match it. And in terms of Horford, by letting him just go off the books, you can't replace him. You're not replacing Al Horford financially. So are the Celtics, depending on how this year goes, and I don't mean win or loss in terms of a championship, but just being there, being in the conversation again. And if Horford looks more or less at the end of the year as he does right now, meaning he continues to just age like a fine wine, are the Celtics in a position where they just have to pay these two guys?
I think so. Well, Grant for sure. I mean, he's young and good and fits into what they're doing. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe the fact that they didn't, if there was a number like in that 14 to 16 million range that Grant would have accepted, I guess is the way I would put it. I do question why they didn't just go there, but maybe it's possible he just wouldn't have accepted that offer and he's looking for way more than that. I guess the other thing I would say is like, what's the math? Like Horford's making gonna end up making 26.5 million this year. And so there's still a chance like that you could maybe get those two back on that amount of money. So if the team's willing to like stay where they are in the tax, which they're way into the tax, but if they're willing to do it again next year, I think you got to bring those two back. I mean, Horford is showing signs of aging. I will just say like the shooting has been incredibly hot, but he is like it's career lows in block rate and steal rate. And he's just like he's doing less offensively. Like his assist rate is way down. Like he's basically just a spot up shooter who's like a really smart team defender at this point.
Right.
That's an incredibly valuable player though. And they've always said that the skills that age the best are size and shooting. I guess
looking at
size.
it right now. He's shooting, I mean, better than he has in a decade.
Yeah.
54% from the field. He's shooting 45% from three. Free throws are actually horrible. He's only shooting 63%.
He takes like fewer than one free throw.
Yeah, very limited attempts for sure. But it's like a career worst percentage at the moment.
Yeah.
But to your point, rebounds are down, assists are down, blocks are down, steals are down.
Yeah.
Turnovers are down, and to give him credit.
Well, but he's not. Yeah, turnovers are going to be down when you're not doing anything except
actually
shooting.
up.
Yeah. Well, so I think like size and shooting age well. I have no reason to believe he's gonna like. He's still gonna be smart as hell on defense. He's still gonna make open shots, but it does feel like already he's sort of like settling into an even more complimentary role than he's been in the past. But I mean, if you look at the contract that PJ Tucker got from Philly this offseason, I think at full mid-level 3 years, that's the kind of thing I would imagine Horford getting, even though, maybe you're not thrilled about paying the second and third years of that deal, but like you just like he's a good player and you have to do it. My guess is that's the conclusion they would come to.
Yeah. I think when you look at those two guys and how they complement the rest of the team, like the Grant thing is going to be the one that quote unquote hurts the most. But I mean, you're going to have to, given what we've seen and, pending how this year plays out, like if they get, to the Eastern Conference Finals and lose to the Bucks in like 7 games or whatever, you're going to have to pony up for that. And I think Grant.
Where are we at in terms of a cap spike? When is the number going up again?
I think it's not for another. Isn't I can't remember.
TV doesn't come in yet.
25 is it?
Yeah, something like that. So I think.
But it's going up.
Yeah. Not the crazy amount that it will when, because everybody, the big thing everybody hears about or talks about, Simmons has mentioned it a million times on the show about how like guys are going to make $70 million a year and the people are going to get mad about that, but that's just going to be the amount of money going around. So
well, but I guess where I was going with that, and I've mentioned it on the show before, and I'm sorry to cut you off before, but the Ainge has said it a million times, and it's always resonated with me because I was definitely one of those people that would see a number, just a number, and get bent out of shape about it. Like I was one of the people that complained about like Avery Bradley getting 4 for 32. You know what I mean? But once you start looking at it's not about the number anymore. Like we don't live in that world anymore. It's percentage of cap. Percentage of cap is all that matters. And so, if whatever, break it down, your stars are going to make the most, your role players aren't, obviously. But, when you look at whatever percentage Grant is going to make compared to the whole cap, or Horford's going to make compared to the whole cap, it's fine. Like, it's going to be fine.
If you think about resource allocation too, it's like, so maybe you pay Horford, but then maybe you decide to dump a draft pick and get off the $6.5 million you owe Gallinari next year or something. I mean, like there's like, maybe it's worth like eating a future draft pick to make sure you get Horford back for the next couple. Like, I think there's like ways of working that out.
It does make me sad to think that Danilo Gallinari may never wear a Celtics uniform.
It's tough for me specifically. I celebrated that way too much.
I'll just remind you about Sam Hauser's MVP case, and like, I think we're gonna be okay.
It's not even about that. I'm about the story. And
can we talk about the defense though?
Celtics fan, a Larry Bird fan. I wanted him to get the chance. Yes,
I want to make sure we talk about the defense.
Yeah, we're already like an hour in. So before we talk about the defense.
Well, so like I think there's been some hand wringing. Even I've been wringing my hands occasionally that the defense hasn't been good. but I like poked around on this and like, so for last year and this year, yeah, I talked about the location effective field goal percentage earlier, the quality of the shots you give up. They've been the best in the league last year, and they're the best in the league again this year in that. Teams are making Oh, so there's this interesting thing happening around the league. Like you probably have heard that like the Bucks and the Celtics and the Raptors, there's a few teams like this that had great defenses the last few years, but gave up a lot of 3-point attempts. This year, the Bucks and the Celtics at the same time have both like they've shut the water off on the opponent threes. Like both those teams have like stopped allowing opponents to shoot as many threes, and all of those shots are being replaced by long like mid-range shots. Um, so like that's really good. Actually, the Celtics and the Bucks are like allowing an extremely high number of mid-range shots, like some of the highest in the last 5 years, basically. Um, so like all of that is really good, and like they're not allowing shots at the rim. They're not allowing threes. I think opponents are actually like shooting an incredibly high percentage, like something like 44 or 45% on long twos against them, which maybe they might actually not be great at defending those because they're focusing so much on preventing shots at the rim and preventing threes. But I think like that number will come down. They were actually the best in the league last year at field goal percentage on long twos against. So like you got to imagine that's going to regulate a little bit. But I think they're up to like league average now defensively. So I think once that percentage on like if most of the shots they're giving up are mid-range twos and the percentage on those shots falls by a few percentage points, their defense is going to be really stellar. The thing I'm wondering if you guys like what you guys think about this, because it feels like Evan and I have been talking about how like it feels like they're running more. They're like last in the league in forcing turnovers right now. And that number has actually been getting worse over the past few games. And so I'm just like, I can't quite figure out what's going on. Is that a Rob thing? Like when Rob comes back, the defense settles in more and like they can be a little more aggressive and force turnovers. That's an area that's like if the red flag on offense is that they're shooting like maybe an unsustainably high percentage, the red flag on defense to me is that they're not forcing any turnovers.
I guess, yeah, but if you look at their numbers like lately, Barrett had it on his last podcast. And it came after the Atlanta win.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't have numbers in front of me, so I apologize. But I'm gonna paraphrase what the Hawks had an offensive rating like in the first quarter of like somewhere near like 118, 120. Second quarter it was very similar. Third quarter that dropped to like a little bit over 100. And Boston's fourth quarter defense just said absolutely no more of this. And Atlanta's offensive rating fell to like 88 points per 100 possessions. So what we've seen the improvement. Again, we noted Kirk Goldsberry's graph in the beginning of the show, or somewhere in the show, where Boston the past 10 days, number one in offense, not shocking. Number one in net, not shocking. But they're number 6 in defense.
Mm-hmm.
They have gotten better over the past couple of games. It's very noticeable, especially again the second half of the game, and well, I'll say the last minute 30 seconds in the fourth quarter against Oklahoma City, and then again the second half, specifically the fourth quarter against Atlanta. Like when they really want to, it feels like they can turn it on.
Mm-hmm.
I think they just, I don't know, maybe they just don't feel like doing it all game, but there have been improvements, and then adding Rob to this at some point
that's the thing,
is going to be hysterical. Because like you go back to last season, defensively was the best team we've seen since the 04 Pistons.
Monstrous.
So it's like there is a path at some point where it's like, I don't know if the computer can handle, because like I remember last year 538 had Boston as the overwhelming like title favorite because the numbers, the math like loves the Celtics, and Gilbert loves math.
Yeah.
Well, it might happen again. I'm just gonna throw that out there. And again,
I think it will.
My favorite quote of the season so far is Mazzulla with "I like math," and I'm just going to keep throwing that out there because he's been on the money about that. Math's been very kind to the Celtics so far. He might be up to something.
I'm away, baby.
Let's do it.
Before we leave, I want to ask you guys this. So I'm going to harp on this as long as it's true, which is the Celtics could be undefeated right now. They're 12-3, but the 3 losses, 2 have come in overtime to Cleveland. and the other one was when they pissed away a 19-point lead.
That's why we haven't done any like complaining on the show.
You can't say this. They lost that Bulls game by almost 20 points.
Yeah,
Like,
but after leading by 19
I know, but you
points.
can't. You just can't be like.
I know you feel differently about runs than I do, but that's not my point. My point is, if they, didn't crap their pants in that game, plus the overtime games, there's an alternate for you community fans. There's an alternate timeline here where the Celtics are 15-0.
So what are you saying? 82-0? We should have been 82-0.
No. Here's my question is this. The upcoming schedule, the next like 10 games, I want you guys to identify, make a prediction just for giggles.
Okay.
Where's the first legitimate loss coming in?
Are you gonna give me the schedule?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Legitimate being defined by,
I say Dallas.
Yeah, they're not in it at the end, or like it's not a game that we're gonna come out of and saying, man, like, how did they not win that game?
They're gonna lose to the Pelicans tonight just because you're doing this.
Maybe. But look, I was having.
Will it be legitimate? Who knows? Could go to overtime.
Well, yeah, overtime.
I mean, if they blow a lead, it doesn't count.
No, if they blow a 19-point lead, it doesn't count.
That's the rules. So
all right,
they can lose wire to wire.
Yeah, they were up 2-0, guys. I don't know what the issue is. at New Orleans, at Chicago. Okay, then you have a 6-game homestand.
Okay.
Dallas,
Right there.
Sacramento, Washington, Charlotte, 2 with Miami.
Okay.
Dallas.
I just want to hear the whole 10. Is there anything else?
I'm going to stop there. Then they hit the road again. That's still. I imagine it's going to come sometime the next.
Weirdly, I'm more worried about the Sacramento game than the Dallas game.
What's
in a weird way.
Is it Terrence Davis who went off that night
Washington,
for Sacramento?
Are back-to-back if you care about
that Sacramento offense kind of scares the hell out of me.
Sure.
I like what they got. I like what they got going. I was skeptical about them, even like given the low expectations, and that offense is like humming.
So you've got them taking this winning streak to at least 11 anyway, or 12, right?
I mean, listen, the Celtics are going to be heavy favorites in every one of the games you just mentioned.
Yep. Yeah, I'm just going with the standard. It's going to be the Dallas game because Luka's playing for Dallas. So
I'm going to say they extend this run in a massive way.
They're going to lose tonight. Thanks, Sam Kaufman. Way to go.
It's going to be one of those 2 Miami games.
Okay, I'm gonna say they finished the season. 16. I'm gonna say they finished the season 79-3.
There it is. Nobody can stop them.
Yeah.
Massive winning streak.
I'll tell you though, I remember I happened to be the circumstances. I was in Boston for that Golden State Boston game when Golden State had won like 26 in a row or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And Boston took them to double OT, and it was like. The Celtics had no business taking that Golden State team to double overtime. It was like Avery Bradley and Kelly Olynyk. It was
always played those guys tough.
Always. And it was like I could have sold my ticket for way too much money that night. I didn't do it because it was just like I wanted to be closer to the action. It was nice. Yeah. But then to have them lose the next night to Milwaukee because they were on that was the first of the back-to-back. Milwaukee was the second. It was like Celtics should get half a win for that. That's crazy because the only reason why that team lost is they were exhausted from playing the season the night before and went a double overtime. It was like one of the best games I've ever seen in a loss in my life. I like walked out of there. I was like, that was awesome. It's like the best game I've ever seen. It was crazy.
All right. Well, let's hope this winning streak goes to 84 games or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, bud, with a cameo from my son. For Evan, for Landman, for my son, for the bird. I'm Adam. We'll talk to you again at some point later on. Yeah, bye. Say bye.